Well, you are listening to Meeting House here on Faith Radio, and it is great to welcome to the program Christian musical artist Terrian. And it is great to have her on the program here. A lot taking place, a tour with Toby Mac, also a brand new full-length album. Now, you've been releasing songs now for quite some time, and you released an EP a couple of years ago that had a song called Light It Up on it. And so now you have a full-length album. And I don't know if the album called Give It Time, is that kind of an autobiographical thing? It's like, okay, so we've been around, we've been doing this Christian music thing, so now we finally have an album. Was there an element of that in the
Absolutely, of course. Especially writing the song "Give It Time." As the lyrics were coming, all of the writers and we just stopped and said, "Man, how fitting for the journey that we've been on." So yes, and that's what I love to do. I like to do my best to write music that reflects where I'm at in life. So yeah, for sure.
All right, and we're going to talk more about that song as well as the title, but I did here at the beginning want to give you an opportunity just to familiarize our listeners with your story in case they're not that familiar with, I guess you might say, the origin story of Terrian. Tell me just a bit about, well, where you have come from and how God has brought you to the point where you're at now.
Well, I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. I am a pastor's kid. My grandfather was the pastor of the church I grew up in. My father was his assistant pastor. And I started singing at the age of 5, and I fell in love with it from that moment on and knew that it was something I wanted to do. And in each season, the Lord just brought along amazing mentors that helped nurture the gift that I had. And that's all just led up to this moment here. And of course, there was always the question of, as a teenager, do I want to do pop music or do I want to do Christian music? Pop music is the cool thing. But then, man, as you grow deeper in the Lord and just get in His Word, you recognize that every gift that He's given me should be used for His glory, to the best of my ability. And I said, why wouldn't I make music for His kingdom? Yeah.
Well, something you said there, I think it's so very important, is that God has given you a gift. You've recognized the gift, and you've had people around you that have recognized that. And if I can say it like this, called it out and helped you to develop and hone the skills that God has given to you. Talk about that overall process, if you would.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I think it starts with my elementary choir teacher, Miss Chatham. She was a very proper woman, and taught us manners, but when she heard me sing, she wanted to put me in front of the school, and she did her best to instill confidence in me. You walk with your head up, and that was her thing. You address people with honor, and so just the character development that started at such a young age from people like Mrs. Chatham, and then in middle and high school, just so many of my teachers, man, poured into me. And one of my teachers, she was the one who took me to the studio for the first time in Nashville, and then meeting my manager, Jill. After that, the rest is history. I mean, Jill just, helped prepare me for this industry, and we do our best to lead with kindness and honor, and so it's been really cool just taking everything I've learned from all of the mentors I've had and walking that out.
Christian musical artist Terrian is joining us today here on the Meeting House on Faith Radio, celebrating the release of this brand new album, and it's called Give It Time. And you had the opportunity, as I understand it, to sing background for Toby Mac, the Diverse City Band. And tell me just a bit about how it is that you and the Toby Mac universe connected.
Yeah. Well, there's a nonprofit organization in the neighborhood I grew up in, And the executive director of that knows Toby's manager and wanted to connect us to him. And he did. And Toby's manager was so kind to have us come to Franklin, Tennessee one day to write with some of their writers and producers. And then Nerva was actually leaving Diverse City eventually. And they asked me if I wanted to join the band. So in 2017, I signed to Toby's label and then joined Diverse City as well. And it's been so much fun, man. I mean, some of the best years of my life doing this.
And so now, do you still sing like when you go on tour? Do you still sing with Toby and the band when you're on stage, as well as having your own set?
Yes, I do. That's exactly what I'm doing on Hit Steep Tour this year.
Yeah, and that is now in progress. So let's talk just a bit now about the process of putting together the album. As I mentioned a couple of years ago, you had released an EP. The songs from that album, as I understand it, are now part of this overall Give It Time project. One of those songs is Big God. I guess you could say that's one of your signature songs.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
so tell me just a bit about how this album was put together.
Well, a big part of albums, if you want to have an album, you want to be sure you have the singles on there. And so I had been praying for months, just Lord, if you would just give me the theme for the single and the sound of the single, I would greatly appreciate it, And we were in the studio one day, and I was listening to the track the producer had made, and I remembered that I had jotted down this title months back that could possibly be a single, and it was Big God. And I was like, I wonder if Big God, would fit over this feel. And I said that, and Toby heard me say it, and then we just ran with it, a big part, our heart really is to be able to bring both truth and joy as much as we can to the music that I make, and for that passion of mine to be the first single out the gate for this album. That was really exciting.
So tell me just a bit about what you wanted to communicate in that song, Big God.
I know that there are so many people with massive things before the Lord, and sometimes it can seem like too great of a mountain. And how am I going to get through this? I don't see a way out. And I just wanted to remind people that you will get out, because our God is big. He's much bigger than that. He created the universe, So of course he's big. And that means that he sees each and every one of our situations. No matter how unique they are, he sees the details of it, and he can change that for us, and he will in time, So that's why I was excited about that message.
Terrian is joining us today here on the Meeting House on Faith Radio. New album out called Give It Time. And share with us, if you would, about, we talked about it a little bit earlier as far as just the whole time of waiting, this season that you've been in until this full-length album is finally released. But tell me about what God has taught you and what you've been able to, in turn, communicate to listeners through this song, Give It Time.
I think I have learned that waiting is necessary, and it's actually a good thing. That's where I'm at. Right now, and it doesn't mean that all of my prayers have been answered. It's just I've finally reached a place to where I have joy in waiting, and I think God gives you the grace needed for the season that you're in, and until he gives you the grace for the thing that you're asking for, you just wait and you embrace what it is he's trying to teach you while you wait.
Well, let's talk about a song that will be featured on Faith Radio, called Honestly, We Just Need Jesus. Powerful song, incredible message, and I'd like for you to just share with us what God was speaking to your heart in the process of writing that song.
Man, I think we wrote that song back in 2020, and it was me just being in the studio and having an honest reflection of my heart, my own heart, and saying, where am I distracted? Where am I not giving space to the Lord in my life? And as we we're trying to figure out what the chorus would be, it just kind of fell out of me. Just honestly, I think we just need Jesus. It's like we can try and answer all of the world's problems and our own issues, but as believers, it must be grounded in our faith in the Lord, and that is what should inform our lives. And so it just felt right in the moment to just say that. That's what it is. We need Jesus.
You are listening to Meeting House here on Faith Radio. Christian musical artist Terrian is joining us today. And with respect to Toby Mac's imprint on this album, of course, he is not only one of the producers of it, but he also makes an appearance on a song called Hope Road. What was that like, making that song?
Man, that message, actually, while we were writing it, it felt prophetic in a way. It's like, how long will you allow yourself to just stay here in this place of shame or frustration or anger or whatever it is, and just being able to say firmly, you know what, I am packing my bags and I'm moving on to Hope Road, and that's where I'm going to live. I'm going to live out of the hope that I've been given in the Lord and the hope that he wants us to have, and so when we got that one, man, we were so excited about it.
So I want to ask a couple of questions with respect to your identity in Christ and really knowing who you are. First of all, as far as knowing who you are musically, you've had various influences growing up, and you've molded this sound over the past few years. How would you describe, just from a musical standpoint, what is your musical identity?
Well, gospel music is the foundation of my musical journey. That's what I listened to a lot of growing up, and also R&B. So there's just something about the chord progressions of R&B. And then as I became a teenager, I heard Hillsong United. It was Oceans, and so I was like, oh, there is like a way to put R&B if I want it, gospel if I want to, pop if I want to, and make that message about Christ, and so I have done my best to bring all of those sounds to my project. So if you listen to it, you'll hear all of that there.
And if you had to maybe just describe spiritually, how do you see the ministry that God has called you to nowadays?
Man, my heart would be for the lost ones, I think. I think that's why I'm also passionate about having so many different sounds of music, music that can turn a non-believer's eyes, to the Lord and say, I know this is a Christian song and I don't really get down with the Christian thing, but there's something about this, and I want to be able to clearly communicate what that something about that is, and I think that's Jesus, obviously, so using music as a way to reach those who are not, followers of Jesus.
Tell me about something that is occurring in your hometown. It's a way of, I would say, a way of giving back. You're involved with a choir effort in Memphis called Angel Street. Share with us about that, if you would.
Yeah, man. So I was one of the original members of Angel Street. It was originally supposed to be a one-time performance, but then it turned into this full-functioning, full-time nonprofit organization. And so not only is it a choir, but it's a mentorship as well program. And they've also been doing job shadowing lately, so it's run by the staff's full of women, and just trying to be positive influences in young women, in the lives of young women in the inner city. And seeing the same thing that happened for me happen to other girls in my community is really special.
That is awesome. Terrian, having joined us today here on the Meeting House on Faith Radio. And as we conclude, tell people how they can connect with you online.
You can find me at iamterrian.com, and there you'll find all of my social media platforms, as well as where you can download and stream the music.
Terrian, it has been great chatting with you. Thank you so much for all you do.
Thanks for having me on.